Hi. So comparing Luke 22 and John 13, there are a few facts in John's account of the Last Supper that weren't contained in the previous versions that we read. And most significant is Jesus' washing the feet of his disciples. Now, this was a true demonstration of servant leadership by Jesus because he took the lead by humbly, lovingly kneeling down at his disciples' feet and washing them. Now, like I said before, when we spoke about Mary's anointing of Jesus, washing the feet of anyone was a slave's job back in the day. So here Jesus was taking the position and doing a task that a slave will do to his master, kind of like reversing the roles. And he knew that he would soon be putting his mission in their hands as his time on earth was drawing to an end. And so he was preparing them to go and spread the good news. Now, although he washed all their feet, he said that Judas wasn't clean. Right, and John says in verse 21 that Satan entered into Judas as soon as he took the bread from Jesus, and then he activated his plan to betray Jesus. Now, even though Jesus knew what Judas was and what he was going to do, he served him just like he served the others. Now, this was something that I found very challenging to kind of because that lesson was loud. Basically, the conviction I got was, everyone knows, or you know of someone who probably doesn't wish you well, probably has some beef for you, and you're supposed to treat the person the same way that you treat the people that you love. Now, that's a hard thing. But then, like I always say, this Christianity that we're called to is not a cakewalk. And so I made a conscious effort and just said a prayer. And I pray for you too, that God will help us to be able to treat even our enemies the same way we treat the ones that we love. Now, Peter's denying of Jesus was a test. And even though it seemed like he failed the test, he really didn't. Because Jesus had told him before that Satan desired to test him, but he, Jesus, had prayed for him. And that even though, it was very obvious that Peter faltered, but his faith didn't fail. And that was good. And I believe that this experience helped galvanize his ministry after Jesus died, because when he was restored, he was on fire. His ministry was like very strong. And I'm just very inclined to believe that sometimes we must go through some very hard lessons, that would help us to impact our future and strengthen our faith by trial. So when we go through hard things and we are restored, then is like, oh, I'm not going to go through this lesson again. And the experience from that lesson teaches you for the future. Now in Luke 10, Jesus sent them out and asked them to take nothing. And I believe that experience taught them to truly depend on him to provide all their needs. But in Luke 22:36, he gives them new instructions. He tells them not only to take a purse and a bag, but also to get swords. And they ended up getting 2. Now, there are several interpretations or reasons why people believe that, he was advising them to get swords. Some say to protect themselves, etc. But I'm inclined to believe that the preceding verse gives the reason why. Right? And basically that's just to fulfill the scriptures that they said that they will say that he came with a band of misfits or something like that. No, misfits was David, but a band of insurgents, more or less. Now in the garden of Gethsemane, in the garden of Gethsemane, which, I should just call it the Mount of Olives, because that's what Luke called it. Jesus submits to the Father's will in prayer, even though the will of his flesh conflicted with the Father's will, in that he was saying, if this could pass over me, but the will of his divinity was aligned with the will of his Father. Now, like Jesus, our humanity must submit to God's divinity. That's the only way that we're able to be in the center of his will and to do what he has called us to do. In Luke's account, Jesus and Peter made eye contact after he denied him. Others said, oh, he just denied him. And I thought about that moment. If that moment was so real, it must have been so heartbreaking It was so heartbreaking. But I'm thankful that Jesus had prayed for him. And, maybe that eye contact was to say, see, but then don't forget. You know what I mean? But, yeah, it must have been very heart-wrenching. And then what I realized at the end of the day was that Jesus went through 6 trials in a space of what people say about 8 hours. 3 civil trials and 3 religious trials, and they were all illegal. But clearly, the chief priests and the Pharisees were determined to nail Jesus, literally. Anyway, here's my hashtag getting to know God lesson. Jesus' death, his suffering, death, and resurrection was very symbolic. And there are a few significant events when you read through this whole books that point to the fact that it was a divinely orchestrated event. Even the littlest details, everything just worked together to ensure and to make sure that we know that it was divinely orchestrated. And it was only by the crushing of Jesus. Think of him in the Mount of Olives, or as an olive seed, or as an olive fruit. It was only through the crushing of Jesus that the oil of the Spirit could have been released upon us. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this enlightening as much as I did, and I will look forward to sharing again with you tomorrow, God willing. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.